What exactly was the happy news from Taehyung that made Jungkook freeze in place and the entire army tremble in disbelief? Is this a sign BTS will change forever? Click, read, and comment. We want to know what you think. Why didn't you tell me from the beginning, Dad? Jungkook's voice sounded hoarse, halfway between delight and disbelief, yet his eyes didn't blink, as if fearing this reality was just a dream. And that's how it all started, with a single sentence from Taehyung that no one, not even BTS members, ever imagined he would say in front of the camera, back then, in a supposedly mediocre recording room. For most of the ARMY, everything that comes from Taehyung is often a surprise. Whether it's her short poem in the middle of a concert, her smile that disappears and then returns in an interview, or her decision to take a break from social media and then emerge carries a hidden meaning. But no one could prepare anyone for this one announcement. Even Jungkook, the first question that crosses the minds of millions of BTS fans is this about the new album? Is this about a solo decision? Or something much more personal? The camera starts filming at a very ordinary moment. Jungkook and Taehyung are sitting opposite each other, drinking tea in a modest room decorated in Taehyung's classic style, red velvet curtains, old leather chairs, and a piano in the corner. Jungkook looks relaxed, wearing a black hoodie and gray beanie. Taehyung looked more serious, wearing a dark blue suit with a loose tie and an unusual expression, nervous. What happened next changed the course of the day. It even changed the course of the discussion of the entire ARMY fandom for weeks to come. Taehyung looked at Jungkook and said, "I want you to be the first to know, before I tell everyone." At that moment, Jungkook stood up. His face implied a faint panic. "You want to leave the group?" Taehyung immediately laughed a little, agitated. But the laughter did not reach his eyes. And that makes the atmosphere even more tense. "No. But it's huge." The happy news Taehyung meant didn't just surprise Jungkook. When footage of the statement was finally released via a 2-minute 39-second video uploaded by bangtan, the public reaction was not only excitement, but also a very emotional shock. In the video, Taehyung with teary eyes says a sentence that will never be forgotten. "I'm going to be a father." For a moment, the world seemed silent. The question is, how could something of this magnitude not leak first? And why didn't Jungkook, Taehyung's best friend, know about it before? In the seconds following the announcement, footage showed Jungkook's expression changing from shock to disbelief, then surprisingly, tears. "Seriously? You really are? Tae, are you going to be a father?" Taehyung nodded slowly. "He is. It's been 3 months." Jungkook stood up from his chair, walking a few steps back while holding his head. "Bro, why didn't you tell me from the beginning? Even before you got married." But it's not just about pregnancy. This happy news is the culmination of a series of events that Taehyung has locked in tight, only shared with a very small circle, not even involving all the members. And that's what makes the ARMY SYOK didn't take long for social media to explode. The phrases "Taehyung's father" and "Jungkook is crying" became global trends in a matter of minutes. But what's even more heartwarming is the fact that many fans are crying, not just because they're happy, but because they feel left out of the story they've been following with so much love and loyalty. "I don't know why I'm crying. I'm happy, but also devastated," one ARMY member wrote on Twitter. "I feel like kayak. Taehyung has entered a phase of life that we cannot reach." Some people began to question, why didn't news like this be shared with loyal fans first? Why was it leaked in a video with such a short duration and such a calm expression from Taehyung? Then came the speculation. Is this HYB's decision? Is this their way of softening Taehyung's career transition to a more mature and personal realm, such as actor or even producer? But the real answer came from an exclusive post-video interview. In an interview that has not been widely publicized and has only been shown to a limited number of music journalists, Taehyung said one sentence that made everyone silent again. "I want you to know, this is not the end of anything. It's the beginning of a new life. But BTS remains my home, and ARMY remains my heart." Interestingly, not all BTS members know this news at the same time. According to an inside source, only Jin and Suga were told because of their emotional closeness and readiness to keep everything secret during the military. Jimin himself only found out the day before the video was released, and his reaction. Really heartbreaking. In the 1-minute 17-second voicemail shown at the end of the video, Jimin's voice is heard stammering. "Color. I'm happy for you. But I don't know why I feel like I'm missing something. You know, We used to talk about being fathers, but now you first. I'm proud, but sad too. And Jungkook? She didn't stop crying for 6 minutes. A scene shows him leaning his head against Taehyung's shoulder and saying quietly, "You know, I always thought I'd be first, but it turns out you took the first step." The ARMY's reaction was divided. There are those who feel touched and proud to see Taehyung's maturity and determination. But there are also those who feel left behind in a relationship that has felt so personal and emotional. Some even called the announcement too cold, like a press release, not a family moment. But not a few also defended Taehyung, asserting that even an idol has the right to have a private space, family dreams, and happy moments that do not have to be shared instantly. Who is the future mother of Taehyung's child? This is the biggest mystery that makes ARMY even more curious, because until this article was created, not a single piece of information was revealed about his identity. Taehyung simply said, "He's not a public figure, and I want to protect him from the spotlight." Immediately a theory arose. Is this the woman who was once caught on camera with him in Paris? Or is it someone from his past who has never been made public? But more than all the questions, the most touching was the last message from Jungkook that was featured as the ending in a special video 24 hours after the initial announcement was released. In the video, Jungkook sits alone in the studio, holding a small teddy bear. "I'm still trying to understand everything," he said, smiling softly. "But I know one thing. I'm going to be the best uncle in the world." For many fans, that sentence and this whole event was not just happy news, but an emotional turning point that touched something very deep, because for the first time, BTS is not just a global group. These are grown men who are starting to write a new chapter with love, family, and real life away from the stage. And now we want to hear from you, ARMY. What do you think of Taehyung's good news? Do you feel touched, confused, or even cry like Jungkook? Kook had used a picture caption with the words, "I miss who I used to be." The internal party immediately held an impromptu briefing that discussed how to dampen public interpretation. Hours later, the post went live, but comments were restricted and staff contacted Jungkook personally to ask if there was any psychological urgency in the post. But according to a staffer in the internal group that discussed the case, the real direction was not to support Jungkook emotionally, but to make sure the post didn't lead to uncontrolled outbursts of sympathy that could threaten the public's focus on the main promotion schedule. Even sadder, it turns out that there was a period when Taehyung was not allowed into the main rehearsal room without written permission. After an incident in which he brought an acoustic guitar and tried to introduce his own arrangement for an in-house concert, he was told that solo projects are not a priority practice at the moment, and then had his ID access frozen for 2 days for protocol checks. For an artist who devotes life to art, being forbidden to play an instrument in a space that should be a place of expression is an invisible form of violence, a silent violence that does not leave physical wounds but kills slowly from within. A source from the sound management team claimed that even in audio production, Jungkook's voice was technically reduced in a live concert because he was considered too dominant compared to the other members in the climax. Instead of taking pride in having a strong voice and commanding the stage, Jungkook was considered too prominent, an unwritten sin in an industry that demands that all appear to be elusively balanced, despite not being balanced in reality. There's even one internal email with the command for extra compression on the lead vocal of JK's part in the bridge for a more even blend. An order that may technically sound professional, but is essentially an attempt to drown out the voice of someone who is too honest, too lively, too bold, is electrifying. And Taehyung? In a never-published behind-the-scenes documentation, an editor saved footage in which Taehyung is seen speaking to the camera during a shooting break, saying, "Sometimes, I feel like I'm just a puppet on a puppet stage." Even facial expressions must pass approval. The sentence never aired, not because of poor quality or technical problems, but because it is considered endangering the morale of the production team. Is the moral in question the comfort executives see their artists submit to, or the convenience of creating a false reality for mass consumption? Several old staff members also exposed the shadow censorship practices of fan letters addressed to Jungkook and Taehyung. Letters judged to be overly emotional, touching on issues of mental distress, or containing criticism of the agency, will be screened and never reach the artist. One of the staff stated, I saw a pile of letters thrown into the container, not because they were opened and then read, but because they were scanned and contained phrases like, "We know you're tired, you can cry." Such words are considered demoralizing. Ironic, because it is precisely in words that idols can feel that they are seen as people, not a machine, not an asset. The most controversial came from one moment that to this day still makes many people wonder why at last year's awards show, Taehyung didn't seem to turn his head at all towards Jungkook during the live broadcast, when before they were known to be very warm. From the confession of a camera crew, it turns out that before the show began, the two were called separately and given explicit directions to maintain physical distance so as not to cause potential misinterpretation of the relationship. Their closeness is no longer censored, it is now considered dangerous. Relationships that used to be strength are now used as an excuse for restrictions. And one sentence of the internal report made the blood of many ARMY boil. The emotional connection between them is too strong. If left unchecked, it can blur the boundaries of professionalism and disrupt the structure of the team. But doesn't BTS stand on the strength of relationships between its members? Isn't it precisely because of their closeness that the world falls in love? If emotional connection is forbidden, then what does it mean to be part of BTS? If hugs, glances, and honesty are to be filtered out, then what appears on the screen is not them, but the version of them who have been circumcised by the system. This story is not finished. The story is still moving, infiltrating every crevice of the heart that has ever seen Taehyung's sincerity while staring at the stage, or heard Jungkook's voice break as he talks about dreams and fear. What we know is probably only 10%, and the rest is stored behind tightly locked doors, in hard disks that are never aired, and in secretly burned letters. But now, the tongues that had been silenced began to move. And truth, like water, cannot be suppressed forever, because even the most solid wall will collapse if the pressure from it continues to grow. And the most painful of all this, they may all this time scream, but no one really listens. Now, we're listening. Now, we know, and the world will never be the same again. Jungkook uploaded a photo of himself in a workout room late at night, sweaty, wistful eyes, and a short caption reading "Still strong." Everyone sees it as motivation. But according to one of HYBE's former social media editorial staffers, the photo was not approved in advance and immediately sparked outrage from employers for disrupting the narrative of perfect fitness that was being built for certain global endorsements. Even crazier, minutes after the post went viral, one team was mobilized just to craft a counter-narrative ostensibly showing Jungkook in tip-top shape, just so the image of exhaustion wouldn't spread too far. Though at that time, according to internal medical staff, Jungkook was undergoing a recovery period due to a muscle injury that forced him to continue performing. He was not allowed to rest for more than 36 hours, and when he was asked to withdraw from a schedule, his answer was only one sentence: "We will consider if you want to pay the penalty yourself." At about the same time, Taehyung experiences a more conscience-slicing incident. In one advertising photo shoot, she was stopped simply for suggesting an artistic concept involving her own handwriting on the filming property. The idea, while personal and meaningful, was flatly rejected as too visually political. When he asked which part was considered political, no one gave an answer. Instead, an internal email ordered that Taehyung's similar ideas not be processed again without the approval of 3 levels of management. He was silenced before he could even speak. And when one of the photographers tried to still insert a candid moment when Taehyung showed a frustrated look, the photo was deleted directly from the memory card. Not saved, not archived, permanently deleted. "We don't need a visual of sadness," said a HYB manager at the time. The public does not like artists who look too heavy on their lives. They get paid to smile. But how can a person smile when the right to be himself is stripped from day to day? In internal documentation on member behavior management leaked to private forums, the term gray zone is listed, a term used to describe areas of interaction between members that should be avoided publicly. In the list, it is clearly stated, Jungkook Taehyung, limit personal interactions that are publicly recorded. Viral risk does not fit the scenario. This is no longer about artist management. This is censorship of human relations. And even more provocatively, the staff who leaked the document mentioned that some of the behind-the-scenes clips showing Jungkook spontaneously hugging Taehyung after rehearsals were blocked for release because they were considered too intimate. The word intimate became a haunting word, because it's not just about the physical, but about the hearts that strengthen each other in an industry that continues to divide them. There was even a time when Taehyung wanted to be present in person at the studio when Jungkook was recording vocals for his solo song, but was turned down by the management on the grounds that space is too tight for two artists. Whereas those present in the studio at that time were